What's up? What's up? I don't know who put that ugly picture of me up there, but my thesis today is basically if we're going to make, or if we're going to be or develop healthy patterns and practices as disciple makers, we must recapture the art of hospitality. Let me say that again. If we're going to develop healthy patterns and practices as disciple makers, we must recapture the art of hospitality. I love what Hugh Halter said earlier when he commented on when he said, demonstrate it in order to proclaim it. My question is, what better way to demonstrate? You see, this principle is not a new principle. This principle is seen all throughout the scriptures. If we just take a quick survey of the New Testament, we see in Romans chapter 12, while Paul is talking about the implications of the gospel in the first 11 chapters, Paul reminds the church in Rome, contribute to the needs of the saints. Seek to show hospitality. In 1 Timothy chapter 5, you see the litmus test for whether or not, in terms of the widow. In 1 Timothy 5, 9 and 10, it says, let the widow be enrolled if she is not less than 60 years of age, having been the wife of one husband, having the reputation of good works, if she has brought up children and has shown hospitality. In the book of Hebrews, the author calls us not to neglect the gift as a means of showing brotherly love as God's messengers. It says, let brotherly love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels without knowing it. See, matter of fact, in the scriptures, in the Old Testament, not to show hospitality was actually one of the greatest rebukes. 2 John chapter 1, 10 and 11 says, if anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not receive him in your house or give him any greeting, for whoever greets him takes part of his wicked works. So we see that even to rebuke or not to have or to show hospitality was one of the greatest signs of it. You see, the omission of the gift is a cause of concern for me. My question is, how can one truly be faithful to discipleship and the patterns and practices of discipleship if we're not demonstrating the art of hospitality? 1 Peter 4, 8 through 11 says, above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as a steward of God's grace. You see, as a pastor and planter in Atlanta, Georgia, it's in both of 1 Timothy 3 and Titus chapter 1, this gift of hospitality. And my call is that if we're really going to practice the patterns and practice of disciple making, we must recapture the art of hospitality. You see, as an urban practitioner and as an urban planter, I moved to the city to embrace all the difficulties, all the realities, the beauty and the complexities of the urban context. And for years, us as evangelicals have done backyard Bible clubs. We have done a lot of things where we are just passing on information. We have done many things where we're going on and we're teaching them the gospel. We're not teaching them anything else about life. So what we've done is that we've educated the future drug dealers of the world. And what I'm saying is that if we're going to really make disciples, we have to open up our lives then more. We have to recapture this lost art in America that it seems like our house is this kind of this safe haven for me. For us. And see, the problem is that all of us will talk about discipleship. We'll say discipleship is life on life. We'll talk about discipleship as more than just information transfer. We'll talk about these statements that discipleship is more caught than taught. We'll use these statements over and over again. But see, the problem is, I think that we've reduced those statements, although the art of discipleship, we've reduced life on life to a once-a-week meeting in our Starbucks, me asking you the question about your life. And so we said, that's life on life, me asking you about your life. We've reduced discipleship to a once-a-week meeting in Starbucks, again, where we're talking about the best book on the market, best Christian book. So the only thing that's being caught in our discipleship is bad practices, bad patterns of disciple making. And we're perpetuating and reproducing the same thing. So what's the solution? The solution is, if we're going to really be about making disciples, we got to recapture the art of disciple making. What do I mean by that? One of the applications that my wife and I and our church has been committed to as an application point to this is, how are we using our house as a weapon for the gospel? How are we using our house as a weapon for the gospel? You see, over 10 years ago, my wife and I made a commitment that there's something wrong with these discipleship issues. There's something wrong with the way we're going about discipleship. It has to be more than what we're talking about, because as I'm reading the discipleship books, as I'm looking at all the things, one of the things that I realized is that Jesus was with them. And I was just like, how can we take this first century principle and apply it to the 21st century context? And so we've made a commitment to open up our home. And so 9 out of the 11 years that me and my wife have been married, we have always had someone living in our house. Because we said that we wanted to use our house as a weapon for the gospel. We wanted to expose and bring people in. And as someone who practices in the urban context, see, I knew that it had to be more than just information exchange. So we've done this program called the SIMS program. The SIMS program is a program that we've done that we invite 7 to 8 singles into our house for a 3 to 4 week period of time. I'm married with 6 kids. So here you go. Think about there's 14 individuals living in our house for a short period of time. And in this time, we're teaching them, and we're basing it off of Ezra chapter 7 and 10, where it says Ezra devoted himself to study the law of the Lord, to do it, to teach all of his statutes to Israel. And what we're saying is that we want to invite you into our lives, and so every single morning we're studying the scriptures and we're going devotionals together. Every single night, we're teaching about worldviews. Every single person, we're dealing with your money management. People have to learn how to deal with money. They have to do chores in the house. They're involved, they're engaged. Every single night you have to be at the dinner table. And it's not 1 year that goes by that when we're doing this and we're sitting at the table and having a meal that they say, I never had a meal with my family in my whole life. You see, what we're doing is that if we're going to redeem, if the gospel is really true, then we have to redeem not just the conceptual reality, but we have to redeem all of reality. And you see, and this is what we're talking about by opening up our house. We're saying, come in, see what we're doing. And yes, it's hard. It's hard at times. I remember one time my wife and I, we were struggling in the midst of doing our program. And in doing our program, I remember we were arguing, we were beefing with one another. But in the midst of argument, here we are, we said we can't live fake, we have to be authentic, we have to be vulnerable. So what we did was we got these 7 singles before us, and they became our marriage counselors. And for a couple of hours, we were talking back and forth about, I'm saying she's wrong, what's wrong with her? And she's saying I'm wrong, and we're just bouncing back and forth. Of course, they always side with the woman. But what was happening was we were just sharing. And see, that taught them more than me just simply exchanging information. See, I truly believe that the apologetic of our day is authenticity. And if we're going to minister in a way that is real, then we need to open up our homes to being more, exposing people to more of our lives than just exchanging of information. You see, when this thing about how using our house as a weapon for the gospel goes far beyond just simply the Sims program. We always have people living with us. We've been able to adopt children to come into our home and to share. And we're just like, we intentionally buy our house in a way that we say, we are here to make disciples. That my wife and I have made the commitment that we desire to be an answer to the prayer that Jesus prayed or called his disciples to pray. The harvest is plentiful. The laborers are few. Pray to the Lord of the harvest that he would send out more laborers. The question that I have is, where are the laborers? See, we've reduced Christianity to a bunch of church services, to conferences, and to concerts. Where are the laborers that are willing to take what we've got and going and says, I'm willing to be vulnerable for the sake of the gospel. I'm willing to expose myself, expose my realities for the sake of you knowing, of redeeming all of your life. You see, and this is my passion. This is my desire. Over the course of these last 12 years that we've been doing that, over 50 people have come into our home that we've gotten a chance to spend life on life time, seeing the ups and the downs, seeing the failures and the victories. This thing has caught on at our church, and in the past that we've had other pastors that had a chance to do it. And so now we're praying this year that there's going to be over 30 people this year that's going to get discipled in that same intensive program. If you were to come to our church and you were to see what we're doing, we have never one time have said, you have to have people live with you. But what is interesting is that a lot of the members, a lot of the people in our church have people living with us. Why? Because they believed in the fact that if we're going to really make disciples, we have to recapture the art of hospitality.